The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Farming isn't just in the land, it's in you. Take control of weeds like never before. Enlist builds on the Roundup Ready system, combining proven control of a new 2,4-D and glyphosate in Enlist Duo herbicide. Protect what matters without changing the way you farm. Talk to your seed or crop protection supplier today.
Weed of the week is Kochia, and in many cases, it's resistant to ALS and Roundup.
Yeah, and not only that, you know, this is one of the weeds when they were first talking about drought-tolerant crops, where I was telling researchers at BASF and Monsanto and any of these companies that were working on this, I said, why don't you guys just isolate whatever it is in Kochia, because that seems to survive in terrible drought, and it's still thriving. Back in the 30s, I heard stories about how guys would actually use that for cattle feed because nothing else would grow, it was so dry. So yeah, Kochia is a very tough plant.
Okay, when you think about it, it is just an annual weed, so it shouldn't be that bad. It's not a perennial or anything. The challenge with it is it has so many growing points, even at a very early growth stage. So when you look at Kochia at 2 to 4 inches, boy, that's about as big as you ever want to see it. You want to get herbicides out there at that time. You don't want to let it get 6 inches, 8 inches, a foot tall. Otherwise, there are so many growing points. What often happens, no matter which herbicide you choose, is we can burn that plant down a ways, and then it just sprouts up again and starts regrowing the next week or two down the road.
So the trick is you got to make sure you're using a good, strong rate, because as soon as Darren describes that, I'm saying, hey, the guy used the right product, just didn't use the right rate. Well, anyway, when it comes to the right product, yes, Roundup has worked great for years, but now we're seeing Roundup-resistant Kochia in addition to the ALS-resistant Kochia we've seen for a long time. So let's talk about strategies and how you're going to control that. My first choice in soybeans, and this is where we have the worst problem with Kochia, my first choice is you got to use a 3-pre program. So we're talking a yellow, metribuzin, and a PPO like Authority or Valor. Then post-emerge, we don't have any good options.
Yeah,
nothing.
I was going to say, sure,
Cobra,
you're going to take the pre's and leave the post for me, because
yep,
there's nothing that's going to get it.
Cobra is the best, and you're only probably talking 60% control. That's it. So you have to have the 3 pre's out there. Otherwise, you might as well forget about it. I hate to say this, but you may end up having to disc up your soybeans unless you get good pre-control in Roundup-resistant Kochia areas, because Roundup isn't going to do it.
Okay, well, if we're looking at wheat, there's really one good pre-emerge option, and that is Sharpen. You can use a couple ounces of Sharpen in front of wheat. If there is any Kochia up, you can definitely burn it down, but you have to use the right additives. You're probably going to need to throw a little bit of Roundup in with the Sharpen to burn down any potential grasses that are out there. Also, you're probably going to need some oil in there to heat that Sharpen up to do a good job.
Okay, post-emerge wide match is great. Husky's pretty good. Turning to corn, verdict down is excellent, but you could also use BalanceFlexx. Even TripleFlex and SureStart aren't too bad. And post-emerge in corn, we got all kinds of choices, especially Status, that's my favorite, but the HPPDs, Callisto, Laudis,
yeah, we're seeing a lot of guys mix
Armezon.
dicamba in with those HPPDs too, and that does well.
Yeah, Bucktrill's not that bad, especially when it's together with atrazine, so you got a whole bunch of choices in corn.
Well, that's all the time we have for our Weed of the Week, but Iron Talk is coming up next.